Hello and welcome to another Midweek conversation at First Baptist Sweetwater, where we strive to be the first responders of God's love. My name is Jerry Hendricks, and I'm here with my co-founder of the podcast, T. Hamilton, and we're ready to talk about all the things that have been going on around here.
There's been a lot going on, which I feel like we haven't been able to say that in a long time.
This is so true, and I had not thought about how busy the last week was until I started to kind of look backward.
Yeah, but it hit and we're through it, and now we keep on going.
Yeah, it all seemed real natural, really pretty kind of easy. It all started, I guess, with following Easter Sunday, which is a big day for churches. But we went to the park on Wednesday for church-wide
Carnivore
block party. Yeah,
church-wide carnivore experience.
Yeah.
So 10 racks of ribs, poppers, sausage, burgers, hot dogs.
All cooked on the largest grill in the big country.
In the Tri-County area.
Yes, it is. And so had a great time out there. And, we talked about how since our COVID numbers, our virus numbers are so low that we felt like it was time to start gathering in these other fellowship kinds of ways. Right. It's been hard to all get on the same page in terms of regathering, and we're patient with that. Yeah. Well, we're maybe not patient, but we're trying to be patient. Our goal is to be patient and respectful of people and their timeline for that decision to come back to church. But this seemed like a really good thing to do. It was outdoors.
It was a beautiful day.
It turned out, perfect, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, you can't ask for much better, especially since when we planned it, it said to be 95 degrees that day. Then it was like 83 or something. Yeah. Oh, it was great.
So shout out to Mike Wilkes bringing his big grill, and it's a sight to be seen. And we're already talking about another appearance. Yeah,
of course we are.
Yeah, so that's good. I hope that's good news to Mike as well.
There was enough room. Like, there were lots of people cooking on the pit, sitting around watching. It's big. It is big.
It was good. Good time was had by all, and then we come into the weekend, and we have Communion Sunday, which is something I don't think we started that, Teak, until 2019 maybe.
Probably.
But we kind of took a step back and looked at, since our church doesn't have a consistent calendar for doing communion, and we don't do it during Advent season or during the Easter season, we looked at times where it would be most natural for the church to gather for communion. And one of those has been around Thanksgiving. We really like that time, the symbolism and the
table.
Similarity of the table. And then also we started the one. Maybe that's when we first started that discussion, was when we did that one the first time.
Yeah.
And laid out a calendar.
We'd really become frustrated with how communion becomes a tack-on element, and we thought it was more important than just being a tack-on element. It's meant to be more than that, and not just us as a church, but I think churches in general have kind of made communion into something that is just routine, and we wanted to be more than that. We wanted to be something that we thought really represented the life, death, and resurrection or proclaiming that of Jesus.
Right, and by tacking on what Teek's talking about there is having a worship service, a shorter worship service, and then doing the elements at the end.
Right.
And we talk about this a lot, that there's tendencies in anything that you do regularly to have such a formality to it that it doesn't really soak in, doesn't become an experience.
Right.
And
when you come away with more stories of how bad the bread tasted than you do about the spiritual significance for what you just did, that's when it's become something that's no longer powerful.
Right.
And it should be. It should be very powerful. I mean, you're proclaiming the death and resurrection of Christ until he returns. Right. That should be a big thing.
Well, so we set out to, and then the other thing that was interesting about the worship Sunday built around communion, I mean, that was the focus of our attention, was the way that COVID protocol still kind of guided us in
Right.
trying to come up with something that I keep saying was good health procedures.
Right.
Being in the coffee shop, I still am mindful of certain health codes, and sometimes once you get into that routine, you start to see it in other things, and so we devised what we felt like would be a smart plan
Right.
for that, along with some of the important themes of communion, and created different ways for us to experience communion together.
Right.
And in fact, this morning I had a phone conversation with someone who visited with someone in their church who didn't sit in their normal pew.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh no.
And their response was that they just thought that they ought to shake things up a little bit to get a different perspective. And I go, that's sort of what we did Sunday.
That is exactly
we get into routines.
in a meaningful way. Like we
Yeah, right.
planned it. It wasn't just
Yeah.
we threw it out there and hope for the best.
Right.
Although I felt like that at times.
So it was a very good time around communion, and look forward to hearing from some others' experiences. Plus, there were a lot of folks here. It was a good feeling for our day, and
Right.
it made for another good weekend for us.
Especially for the Sunday after Easter, which is traditionally a low Sunday in general. I told the deacons at the meeting last night that there are two Sundays that you can count on low attendance, and it's kind of disappointing that it happens the Sunday after Easter. I don't know what happens. It's like, yay, Jesus arose, we won't go to church next Sunday. And then rain. Like, we pray for rain all week, but if God sends us rain on a Sunday, we celebrate by not going to church. And that's consistent. You can check that. Rain days, the numbers are down.
Well, yeah, you stepped on some toes there.
Yeah, I did. But I've told the youth that for a long time. And it's funny because the youth will come up on a rainy day and say, I'm here and it's raining.
Yeah.
And I'm like, good. I'm glad.
Well, hopefully they'll be here tomorrow night and be a little bit wet.
Yep, we're starting a new study on, well, I'd prefer them not to be wet, but okay. We're starting a new study on the third floor. We're calling it Unenvisioned. It's not actually a word, but we're looking at the interactions between Jesus and individuals between the resurrection and ascension. In every one of those cases, there's an element of surprise that they didn't anticipate their interaction with the risen Christ going that way. So tomorrow night is Mary Magdalene, and then the next week is the disciples on the way to Emmaus, which we did Sunday.
Right.
Or you did Sunday.
And those, you were telling me about that earlier, really good approach to this season that we're in, following the resurrection.
It'll take us right up to the birthday of the church. Not First Baptist Church, but Pentecost Sunday.
There you go. Well, this is a season that is often forgotten, I think, in the life of the church, and which that's a shame because we're in that season of celebrating and understanding, I believe, the church. And our people here that are familiar with me know that this is something that's nearest and dearest to my heart, having had one experience in planting a church and being able to really just think from the ground up what you would want a church to look like in our culture. And so
on Pentecost Sunday, what color are you going to wear?
I'm probably going to wear red.
Oh, me too.
Oh, yeah.
I think I'll wear red because that's what you're supposed to do.
You know, that's looking way down the road. It's not far down the road.
It's like May 20th.
Yeah.
23rd.
So, but we've not made a good attempt at that one. We made an early
we have
on.
in the youth, but
Yeah.
it's easier to do things in youth than it is. We talk about this all the time. It's one thing to do something in the youth area, the children's area, or even in classes. It's a big attempt when you do it in worship.
Yeah.
Because it could be interesting.
Well, and going back to our conversation about communion on Sunday.
Right.
There was a feeling of I needed to communicate somehow to our deacon leaders that because they normally serve communion, so I knew, and we weren't going to have a meeting before then.
Right.
And so I communicated in an email and asked you to look at it to make sure that I covered, because it's difficult to communicate enough,
Right.
but not get too far out there in the weeds on the details. And but I knew that there was going to be a certain element of, I don't know how you say that with me, fly by the seat of your pants.
Right.
In other words, a game time call.
Directed from the stage.
Yeah, an audible.
Yeah, audible.
Audible probably sounds better.
What Peyton Manning say? Nebraska.
Omaha.
That's what it was.
Yeah.
Omaha.
So Sunday was definitely one of those days where it wasn't the normal thing, but we also knew because of the expected lower attendance that it would be easier for us to
pull that off.
To manage. So,
and it was so cool to see people group up who didn't traditionally group up. We talked about it at the park. People grouped up in their typical groups, but when you do it at worship, it was who you were sitting around, and so you had youth getting with adults who weren't their family, and so it was just really cool to see how that mixture happened, and seeing people take different roles that normally they don't get to do.
Well, and I think that's what I've always appreciated, is that you want enough structure for something to happen, but not so much structure that it becomes routine and expected. And I think, again, I've said this so many times about our church, I'm really proud of our spirit in the way that we approached it. And, you know, you and I have paid our dues here too, on things, on trying things. And the church is a little more familiar with the way we might do things. And so I think it's, you know, we still, if you're not familiar with that, a service like we did Sunday, I think there's a tendency to feel a bit of a tension or whatever. But what I liked in being able to observe from my chair, which is a very good chair to observe that from on a Sunday, is that not everything happened in the same way. And you were alluding to that, but it's definitely a real good feeling for that.
If you're watching on Facebook, live, not live, whatever it is, record on Facebook, let us know your experience of Communion Sunday. Yeah. That'll help us evaluate. Put it in the comments. That'd be great.
Well, because we do continue to plan and think with online worshipers in mind, and that number is still a number of folks for us, and we want to be welcoming to you in your worship experience.
Right.
So we move into the season really now of talking about the church. This Sunday we'll be talking about the church being of one heart and being all together, and I think that's one of the primary themes as you go into the book of Acts, through all the different experiences that you have.
Right.
And this year in particular, I've worked hard to outline the 3 years of electionary to get everything to line up. And so you'll notice that some of these texts that were covered this year, the last time we covered them in some cases was 2017. Okay. But they're frequent texts that we move through so that we, over a period of time, can capture the body of work as well as the key points of the chapters, of the book. So we'll be in the book of Acts for the next few weeks, and our theme is woven, which is important because we're going to be talking about also the history of our church. So we're considering how our own history is woven together with the early history of the church. And we've asked Glenn Harrison to present each Sunday just a portion of our history. He does this in our membership class, which we will have this Sunday at 9:15. And so we look forward to seeing how this develops. I think we definitely want people to understand who we are and develop an appreciation for who we are, but also understand what the church ought to look like. And there's always ways for us to strive in those areas. And then ultimately, we're pointing toward a very specific date, December the 11th, 2021. And we're going to have some kind of celebration that weekend. Our church will celebrate 140 years of ministry. And this is a good way for us to really dig in, I think, and examine ourselves to see where we are at this time at a critical point, since we're starting over in so many ways, and to begin to really start praying and preparing for significant days that are ahead of us. So I'm excited about this series, excited about the things that are happening in student ministry area and children's area, and definitely this is going to be a fast finish to the semester, to the school year, and then we'll be off and running, making that transition into summertime.
Right. And it's going to be a nice, warm summer. I'm excited about it.
Yeah, it's going to be nice and warm, all right. Well, we look forward to being a part of your worship on Sunday. We see you at 10:30 a.m., whether it's live or online.
See you then.